the warning signs were so obvious that many members of the public, many lay members, many lay people saw very clearly that the public messaging, the public policies were not following the science. So I can tell you as an expert in this area, and it was very obvious to me as well, there's no excuse. If you were a healthcare practitioner, your radar, like your alarm bells should have been going off very early with this technology, very early. After I have been exposed to what I was exposed to, and people start calling me an anti-vaxxer as a vaccinologist and a person who has published an unbelievable number of papers on vaccines, I started looking into this issue. Because, as I said, how many lies does it take to be deemed a liar? And when I recognize that somebody has lied to me, this is the thing. If you've lied to me, I now question everything you've ever told me. Because I don't know how many times you've lied to me now. Once I've caught you with one lie, I may have only caught you with the one, but you may have lied to me many times. I don't know. I have no way of knowing. And I can't trust the response you're going to give me if I ask you how many times. So I am starting to look back into this. What I can say as a vaccinologist, I'm not going to bash historical vaccines at this point. What I can say is I'm looking into it, and I've been shocked by the poor quality science that supports a lot of our historical vaccines. I have found fatally flawed vaccines. I was telling my own students, go get the HPV vaccine, right? Because it can be great for preventing cervical and anal cancers, right? So these are the vaccines we give to our teenagers in school. I went back and looked at that because I was shocked. I heard that apparently they didn't compare in the control group, because I saw that the clinical trial data said they were going to compare the vaccinated group with the group that got a placebo. I understand what a placebo is. That means it's sugar water or salt water. No bioactivity whatsoever. I saw that, so I thought, what's the issue here? I went back and looked, and when it was actually published, I found out that what they compared the vaccine to was the adjuvant. Well, any good vaccine, the protein that you're targeting is supposed to be an inert molecule, meaning it has no bioactivity in the body, so it can't do any harm. In other words, what they compared was the bioactive component of the vaccine to the bioactive component of the vaccine, and then ruled that, we didn't see any safety issues. And I had been keeping an eye, and I did see that there were safety issues accruing, especially in young women, where we were pushing this preferentially. So I see that these kind of results after the fact, and then I even was able to get my hands on and see a consent form for somebody who participated in this, where it explicitly said that the control group was going to get saline, salt water, didn't even say placebo, which is what we were told publicly. It explicitly stated that. And then I find out, no, they got the adjuvant. So what I can tell you as a vaccinologist, as I started looking at this, is I share the concerns. I know I can't trust them. I can't definitively say that any of our historical vaccines are bad and don't meet the proper risk-benefit analysis, but I am no longer going to sit here and tell anybody that they meet that risk-benefit analysis. And I think everybody should be allowed to darn well, in the state of affairs now that has been created. People have tried to accuse me of creating vaccine hesitancy. You know the reason why I spoke up and expressed these concerns so long ago is because I realized that if people are going to trust vaccines, they need to trust vaccinologists. They need to be able to follow people who are going to tell them the bloody truth. I spoke up to defend my field of expertise. It's these health agencies, they are now crying bloody murder because vaccine hesitancy is starting to go through the roof, and they are the ones who are responsible for the vaccine hesitancy. I tried to prevent that in the population. But you know what? I'm no longer going to stand alongside these organizations and blindly tell people that these things are great, that they are safe and effective. No, I can't trust them anymore. I realize now I've got to go back and look at all of the data. And it's taken me so much of my time to just keep up with the COVID-19 data. I don't know how long it's going to take me to go back and look at these historical vaccines, but I am not going to tell anybody that they should be taking any other vaccine until I have been absolutely convinced that the overall weight of the transparent, legitimate evidence suggests that they should. So I recognize this. So I recognize that I would say it's a potential issue. It's a concern that I share. And I have to openly admit, I shared it at the beginning. I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. This started when I was about 7 years old. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 17. I recognize through the research that I do now that Tourette syndrome, these neurological tics that I have, fall within a category of diseases that could potentially be the result of vaccine injury. It's theoretically possible that I'm vaccine injured, a vaccinologist. I recognize these things now. It's a legitimate question. And unlike all the gaslighting that's been going on, we need to take these legitimate questions and we need to say we're going to slow down here and we're not going to be forcing these things on people. We need to be more open to letting people make their own choices considering the huge mess that the field of vaccinology is in right now. And let's invest the time and effort in doing the research so that we can give definitive answers to what you're saying. So you can either gain confidence that it's just fine, or we'll find out that maybe it's not and we can adjust. I can't tell you as a vaccinologist all the things that are being pushed on our kids. We definitely don't need them all. And in many cases, we could rely a lot less on vaccines if our government would invest far less amounts of money into basic lifestyle changes and doing things like promoting free vitamin D testing and promoting true vitamin D sufficiency. I'm not talking about as they define it based on bone health, because the metabolic requirements of the immune system are vastly higher. And if we promoted what research shows, I like to call it immunological sufficiency. If our government promoted immunological sufficiency across Canada, our healthcare costs would plummet. The average health of our population would be far better. We'd have far fewer diseases, far fewer hospitalizations, far fewer deaths, and we'd have to spend a lot less money on healthcare here in Canada. So there are alternatives. I mean, when we saw people, like I said, I even went to a pharmacy and asked to see if I could have a product monograph. They couldn't find any on hand in the pharmacy. And I'm thinking at that time, how are you giving these out to people? How are you giving these shots? You can't even show me a product monograph. If you can't show me a product monograph, then how can you have read it? And we saw many indications where the people hadn't read it. Let me give you the most egregious example that I saw right where I live in Guelph, in Ontario. I work at a veterinary college. I'm not a veterinarian. Many of the people that try and say, oh, don't listen to this guy because he's a vet. I'm not. My research is human focused. I'm not a veterinarian. So that is just complete defamation. But I can tell you, therefore, I've got the experience. You won't believe this. And they even tried to promote it as these were student veterinarians. They weren't. Student veterinarians, what that means, a student veterinarian, it means they're enrolled in a veterinary program, but they're undergraduate students. They're undergraduate university students. We had undergraduate university students giving these shots to people and not disclosing to them. These people were coming and getting shots, and they didn't know that these were undergraduate students. They're not licensed. They're not healthcare providers. That's why I don't even say physicians. That's what we had going on with this. We had undergraduate students in their early 20s giving these shots to people. It's absolutely wrong. Absolutely. Because if you read that, how as a physician, like, I know exactly what you're getting at. How as a physician especially, so a physician, you have to operate at with a certain level of professionalism. So maybe you can say, okay, these 22-year-old students, okay, maybe they should never be giving the shots, period. But a physician, if you read the monograph and you see that there is no indication, the manufacturer has not sought an indication for use in pregnant and breastfeeding women, and you see they cannot assure the safety of this at all, yeah, how could you in good faith ever recommend it to those people? This is my concern. Many of my colleagues incorrectly told the public that the only side effects that you could ever possibly see unveiled from these COVID-19 shots would unveil themselves within about 3 weeks of getting a shot, maybe 4, 5, or 6 weeks. After that, there are no known side effects that could possibly occur. You cannot make that assertion for a novel technology, which I agree is a gene therapy technology, not a proper vaccine technology. So you cannot make that contention, and this is my concern. So I can't definitively say, but we know numbers that don't lie. Governments keep pretty accurate numbers on deaths. We're seeing this steady rise in all-cause mortality. We're seeing a steady rise in cancers. We're seeing a steady rise in autoimmune diseases, all of these chronic conditions. If you just look at it from that perspective, our public health agencies have been miserable failures over the past 4 years. Our world, global population, is much less healthy now than it was in 2019. That is the reality. And it all seemed to start spiking in 2021 in correlation with the rollout of these shots. So why might these shots be going down, but cancer still continue to go up potentially? I'm worried that we've created a smoldering fire. And I'm worried about how many people are out there where they have this smoldering fire, and it's a case of we have to wait now long enough to see when the flames appear. And that's what we're seeing with the cancer. So yes, the uptake of the vaccine is now decreased, but I can tell you the body, when it comes to cancers, our immune system is designed to suppress the growth of those cancers. It is designed to do that. And so there are, and this is what I tried to share early on in the pandemic, we have concerns about potential neurological issues that are similar to things like Alzheimer's, similar things like Parkinson's disease, or what we call mad cow disease, or in people it's Jakob-Creutzfeldt disease, right? Those conditions the potential for this technology, the potential exists for this technology, I'm not saying definitively it does, to trigger prion-like diseases in the brain. And so people understand if that has been triggered, it can take up to 30 years for those to unveil themselves clinically. So I share your concern. I hope that I'm wrong. I can't definitively say this is a problem, but again, it's a legitimate scientific question, and we're seeing the trends that way. Is how bad could it get? How much damage might we have done? How many smoldering fires have we created? And we're not going to discover how bad that was until all of those fires are burning. Or to the point where we have identified that we have started those fires. I don't know. I honestly cannot tell you.